Boston College linebacker Bryce Steele is ready to put his health situation behind him and become the impact linebacker BC's defense desperately needs.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I am your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network, and I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want the news, insight, analysis, and scoops on your Boston College Eagles, the Locked On Boston College is the place to go. We are a free daily Boston College podcast available 5 days a week on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, we're going to get into some basketball recruiting. I'm going to give you 3 names of recruits that you need to monitor for the class of 2026. Who's Earl Grant going after? I'll explain. Also, we're going to go into some under-the-radar players. We'll do some. We'll start by going defense, and then we'll get to the offense. Who's on the offensive side? We have a lineman and a running back that are going to be very interesting names to watch, and 3 impact defensive players that you need to talk about. Let's get into it. So on the defensive side of the ball, we the reason I'm bringing this up, the reason we're doing this show is because I talk a lot. Last week, I've been talking quite a bit about Syer Torrance. We've talked quite a bit about Bam Crouch and Q Hutchins. And, I think folks want to know where things are at with some of the other players, get a fuller viewpoint of some of the under-the-radar players that could be playing this year that you'll either be cheering for or getting upset with, because that's what BC fans do. So the first one I want to talk about is Bryce Steele. Bryce Steele, I think everyone who's watching this podcast probably has heard his story, but if you haven't, he's had recurring bouts of cancer since high school days. And it really hit him again most recently in 2023, and he's finally 100% cleared now. Now, this health situation was scary. Like, bigger than football, like, wow, I can't believe he's still playing scary. And even up until last year, like he said in his interview with ESPN, he played last year. He played 4 games and was able to hold his red shirt. He'd make a hit, and then the wind would get taken out of him. He just didn't have the stamina. Well, we talked to Bryce Steele on Wednesday, and he discussed how conditioning is the biggest thing he's working on, and that he spent all summer long working on that. Now, I've watched him on the field. He is getting he's much more involved than he was last year. I can tell you that. And Owen McGowan is out right now with an ankle injury. Kamari Dixon is out. He had an injury from this fall or winter. I haven't seen him, but I think he'll be back soon. Jalyn Blackwell's out. You have spots that could go to a guy like Bryce Steele. And so the fact that he is he says he's as close to completely healthy as you can get, and he's feeling it, he's feeling better. I would love to see him return to the roots of where he came from. Remember how excited folks were when Bryce Steele committed here? They lost, Trevin Wallace, I think, who went to Kentucky. I think he's in the NFL now. And he was a 4-star. You replaced him with another 4-star in Bryce Steele, who was committed to, I think, South Carolina before. And you ended up getting him. And he came in and he played a little bit, but you want that excitement to come back because he has that in him. And if he's feeling as healthy as he can be, and where his body's at, I'm not sure, but he looks good, and he could be a linebacker. Maybe he's not an every down linebacker, but if you're watching a game and they're cycling a few guys in and out, maybe Bam gets dinged up a little bit, Steele's going to be out there, and the fact that he's feeling healthy is a big deal. That's a big deal. So he's one I'm very excited, and I think you'll see more of him this year than you did last year. The next one is more of a guy that played a lot last year, but for some reason, we're not talking about him. That's Cam Martinez. I feel like I've done this podcast, I do it every day, and I don't think I've talked about Cam all that much. He had his moments last year, both good and bad. There were times where he struggled. You remember, he was the guy that he's a safety, he can play safety, he can play corner. He played nickel corner a lot last year. came from Ohio State, uh, was committed to Halfley. I think O'Brien had to basically resell BC to him. He stays here. They play a lot of Kari Johnson last year, but Cam Martinez started to take that spot over. Now he had I think it was like a quarter of his life against Virginia Tech. I think it was the third quarter that he had an interception, a fumble return, and I think it was a sack. He had like 3 huge plays, like bing, bing, bing. And that was like the best part of his season. Now, Cam is super important because he's your nickel corner. And I'm not sure how things are going to shake up right now because Amari Jackson is still watching at practice. He's there and he's in pads. He just hasn't practiced yet. So I'm not sure what his situation is going to be. You have guys like Ashton McShane, but Sayer Torrance is going to have to get out there. Sayer Torrance right now looks more like he'd be a outside corner, playing kind of the role Amari Jackson is. But what happens when Jackson's ready to go? It's going to be a battle between Torrance and Torrance and Cam Martinez. Can Cam keep that job? He's going to have to play well. Now, I want to say, during camp, I've noticed Cam making plays, and that's a good sign. He's made a couple pass deflections, good physical play on Wednesday when they were actually wearing pads. So I know he's feeling that really, really good too. Now, he mentioned when we talked to him at media earlier this week that he could play anywhere. So that's an interesting thing. That's the reason why I bring him up is say you push Sayer Torrance inside. Maybe Cam finds a spot somewhere else, whether it's outside corner, dime packages, whatever it's going to be. He's a veteran. He's probably one of the older guys you have on your defense. You'll find a spot to play him. Sometimes he may be a little bit more limited than some of your other guys that are a little bit more explosive, but he needs to be out there. And he's also got a second role on special teams. He's out there for punt and kick returns. Cam Martinez is someone, like, he's a jack of all trades. Like, if Bill has a spot where things are getting thin and, maybe he gets bumped, that's what Cam could do this year. Or he just sticks at nickel. Maybe Amari's not ready for the season, and I'm not sure. Bill has not talked about that. And again, I can't report on injuries unless Bill talks about it. So he has not mentioned anything on Amari's return. But if he does miss some time, then maybe Amari goes there. Sayer goes there, and then everything's all set. But if he comes back, that's where Cam's versatility will come into play. And then the third player I wanted to mention is Quan Williams. Quan Williams was a former 4-star defensive tackle from Maryland who has played quite a bit, but he's not a name you talk about a lot. Now, BC lost Cam Horsley to the draft. He's with the Tennessee Titans now. And, they're cycling in a bunch of different guys. That's kind of how Tim Lewis and a lot of teams do this. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Cycle in quite a few defensive tackles. Now, if you look at who's available for this year from last year, and you're talking about returning snaps, number 1 would be Owen Stodmeyer. He's way ahead. Number 2 is Quan Williams. Quan Williams had a quiet year. He was kind of quiet last year. It's not like big explosive plays, but he played about 180 to 200 snaps last year. For a defensive tackle, that's, I think, second or third on the team. Now with Cam there, it was fourth because George Rook was there too. But now with those two gone, Horsley and Rooks, he's right up there. And he plays a lot during camp. Like, he's out there a lot. This is a big year for him. Again, this is that 4-star potential that you're hoping to see out of him. This is a position you would love to see a guy like Quan Williams come out of nowhere and really wow you. Because I think we've talked quite a bit about Owen Stodmeyer. I think Quan could be a guy that lines up next to him or cycles in with Stodmeyer, but he's a guy that I think he's an under-the-radar name that if he has a better season than he's had, which could happen, BC could be in better shape. So those are 3 under-the-radar defenders. All 3 of them have played big roles so far in practice. I've seen a lot of all 3 of them, and they're out there. So they're names you might want to watch for. Now let's get to the offensive side of the ball. Who are some names that you should watch for? One of them is an offensive lineman that isn't starting, but I'll explain why you need to watch for him. And a running back that may be a little bit of a stretch for under the radar, but he's not getting the love that he deserves. And I'll explain what that means in just a moment. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Maybe you're finding the Red Sox recent run thrilling. Who isn't? Or you want to bet on Roman Anthony hitting a home run. You could find both of those. You could put them together to make a parlay, make it a Boston-centric parlay. And that's the best part of FanDuel. It's easy to use, it's fast to pay out, and even regular season games feel like must-watch events when you're making bets like that. So, are you new to FanDuel? New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. And if you are a first listener, if your first listen every day is Locked On Boston College, you guys know that I'm at camp every day. Every day so far, I've been there, other than one, but I have a staff writer that goes there. So I'm getting you everything that you need to know about your Boston College Eagles here at Locked On BC. And you're going to get info and get yourself wrapped up so you're ready for that Fordham game. Because I want to get you all, I want to be your go-to. So I'm giving you some names today. Under the radar names that maybe the casual Boston College fan knows a little bit about. Like Bryce Steele you know about, but I wanted to make sure you knew he's playing a bigger role right now. And that's important to see. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, I have two for you today. And one is an offensive lineman. And let's kick it off with that. That is Ryan McCow. And he's an offensive tackle. You saw him last year. If you watched the Nebraska game when BC lost Jack Conley, Ozzie Trapillo, Andrew Kendall to sit-outs, he played. And he honestly, against a pretty good Nebraska defensive line, was one of the most impressive players in that game. He really opened my eyes to being a guy that really could be a factor for BC moving forward. Now, if you're looking at like the offensive line, I would imagine where things sit, you're going to probably see at tackle. Jude Bowery is definitely going to start at tackle. And probably a guy like Kevin Klein seems like that would probably be where they're going to go. Bill's brought him up quite a bit. That's probably where things land. But two quick things here. The offensive line is a violent position. Guys get hurt all the time. We've seen that happen quite a bit. Secondly, you have Jude Bowery, who's been hurt, and Kevin Klein really hasn't played all that much. So maybe he doesn't work out. You might need another guy to fill in. So who's your top tackle? Who's the top tackle coming out of camp? There's two. Your next two guys you could be talking about are Jack Funk or Ryan McCow. Right, Ryan McCow. Or if you want a third one, Pape Sai. Now, I'm not going to go with Pape Sai, even though he looks a million times better than I've seen him before. That's the kid from Senegal who played at the NFL Academy. He's a redshirt freshman. Watch him in a year. Not ready there yet, but I feel like he could be someone in a year that we're talking about. Ryan McCow is the one I look at right now and say he's ready. And so there's a multitude of situations where he could play a role this year, whether it's an injury, whether it's a guy struggling, whether it's a sixth lineman that they need to use. Who could he be that guy? And I'm not sure how they're going to do that. They have Zeke Moore, so maybe Zeke Moore plays the sixth lineman more this year. I could definitely see that happening. But with McCow, I could see, if there's a spot that opens up, maybe Bowery gets dinged up. He's going to slot in perfectly because he's going to be your starting tackle in 2026. I think that I believe that very firmly. So this is going to be a good year for him to do that. So he's one I'm watching for. He's one I think that, especially, unless you really watch that Pinstripe Bowl, you don't know who he is, but he is a name that we'll be talking about. And I'm not going to go ahead and say like he's the next biggest offensive lineman. I haven't seen enough of him. Believe me, I'm not going down that road yet. But I do think there's something there, something to watch for. Secondly, and this is my biggest stretch of under the radar players because he's not really under the radar based off of what he did last year. But there's a lot of talk about the other two running backs, so I'm going to talk about Jordan McDonald here. As I just said, Turbo has been on the lips of everyone from spring practice, and rightfully so. He is a lot of fun to watch. He's really fast. And Alex Broom coming back from his knee injury, he's out there he's a senior. He's doing a lot of good stuff out there too. So rightfully, those two guys absorb a lot of that running back talk. They're like they suck all that life out of any running back talk. But if you heard Mitch Wolf on one of our episodes earlier this week, you heard me talk about, or heard him talk about how he thinks Jordan McDonald's going to have a big year. And I think so. I'm starting to think so too, watching him at camp, because he is the closest that BC has to a big burly running back. Turbo is definitely big. I mean, Turbo and Alex both are, even if they're smaller running back, and Turbo's not small, but Alex is small. They're built. They're both jacked. Jordan McDonald is tall and jacked. I think he's like 6'2", 200 plus pounds. So when you have a back like that, he's going to have a big role. And we know Bill O'Brien loves him, because last year he was their practice warrior. The guy that, Bill's loves telling the story, went from practice squad to star by the end of the year. And so he's going to continue that this year. You see him a lot out there with Grayson James and Dylan Larnagin. He's a good pass blocker. He's going to be a big role. So as much as I want to say that Turbo Richard is going to have this huge year, you can't sleep on what Jordan McDonald can do. Remember how dangerous he was against Syracuse and UNC last year. I think he could do it again this year. So that's my final. Those are 5 guys. Maybe you have someone you want to know about. Throw them in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on who are some surprise names that you think could have a big season or play a role. I think, we talk all about the stars, but who's going to play a role? There's 22 guys and then a bunch of other guys that are going to have to play. Who do you see doing it? I'll talk more about that if you bring it up. Now, in a moment, I want to get into basketball targets to monitor in the class of 2026. I have 3 names that have been popping up, and I'll explain who they are, where the BC Eagles stand on them in just a moment. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, and I want to shout out my everydayers. If you're an everydayer, you listen to Locked On Boston College 5 days a week, and you guys are true BC sickos, BC diehards, if you're listening to this 5 days a week. But I love it. I hope you enjoy my show. We had Mitch on. We're going to have Giovanni Collada of WZBZ on next week. We'll just talk to him. He's going to come in and talk football from a student's perspective and student journalist perspective. I love to hear what he has to say. We'll probably have Mike Sidley back in again soon. We're going to have some guests on. I love to have some new names and new faces on here too. We've had Brett Ryder on here, Sidley, Alex Agrella, who covers recruiting. That's what Locked On BC is about. And all you everydayers, you're going to get the taste of that. So our final segment, let's kick it off with basketball talk. Now, the class of 2026 for basketball is an interesting one, because I honestly, looking at the roster size of BC and who's leaving, and honestly, with the portal, who the hell knows is going to be here and who's gone. But in terms of graduation, it looks like to me BC is in line to not really have a huge recruiting class, because you're going to probably lose a Donald Hand or maybe a Fred Payne, but that you only have a spot or two. But there's more and more names for the class of 2026 popping up. The big one that has popped up quite a bit recently is Jalyn Collingwood. Jalyn Collingwood was a name that has been really on the lips of a lot of recruiting services recently. He is a top 150 recruit, a 4-star, a small forward from Sidwell Friends Heights School in Washington, D.C., and he's looking at schools like Maryland, Mississippi State, Arizona State, BC. He's got quite a few different offers, and I believe he's taking an official visit to BC. I hear more off and on that's happening, and BC hasn't said anything about it. But hey, 4-star, sign me up. I will I will go for that for basketball any day of the year. So he's an interesting one. His recruitment, because he played so well during the summer, like his AAU circuit kind of stuff was like off the chains. Like this was a guy that was before the summer even started. Collingwood was not even on anyone's radar, and then all of a sudden he does all this stuff, and boom, top 150. That's how it works, right? You get some scouts' attention, everyone starts to offer, and then boom, he kind of gets out of BC's reach. Then another 4-star is a point guard out of Blair Academy, and this is Jaen Chapman. It's Jaen. I'm going to call him Jaen because I think that's how you pronounce it. He's a 6'1" point guard who is ranked 144, so he's ranked even higher than Collingwood, which is interesting because his offer list is nowhere near what Collingwood is. I mean, he's got offers from Fordham, George Mason, George Washington, Quinnipiac, URI, West Virginia, and BC. He just got offered recently. This is an interesting one to watch more than Collingwood because Chapman is... Oh, shoot. Where am I? Oh, sorry. I thought I was having a technical difficulty there. Chapman is a guy who played with Jack Bailey, who was BC's recent forward commitment that they just got this year. So he's teammates. So clearly Earl Grant or someone on his staff has a very good relationship with the Blair Academy staff. That could help. I don't know if that's the kind of thing that will help bring in multiple players, but clearly if you took a guy already, the coach is going to probably like you, and that could help as well. And then, of course, the big one came out on Wednesday night as BC made the final 5 for Trey Beamer. Now, Trey Beamer is another point guard from IMG Academy, which is, like, as I've always said on the show, is a athlete factory down in Florida, where he's also a 4-star, but he's a number 85. This is like the Carter Gooden of this class. Number 85, he's the number 9 point guard in the country, and he has a top 5 of BC, Virginia Tech, Mississippi State, USF, and Maryland. Maryland obviously has a huge NIL budget, so they're going to be hard to beat. So is Mississippi State. They seem to get guys too, but who knows? Who knows? This could be a fun one. And, maybe they use New Balance finally. I feel like that could be coming soon. So that's a good one. This would be one of your highest ranked recruits of all time. I'm always a little cautious with this kind of stuff, but he's going to be taking an official visit to BC soon too. I think it's the end of September. So he'll be checking out the Eagles. This one will be one to watch for as well. And then, of course, you have lurking Tony Bryant. But I don't want to talk about Tony Bryant because he's a 5-star. I think he's ranked 12th in the entire country. He took official visit to BC. But I don't understand his recruiting because I feel like maybe he just wanted a free trip to Boston because, like, right now, Tony Bryant is looking at, like, Kansas, Arizona, UNC, UConn. Like, he's not coming here. I know we had fun with it for a while, but unless something drastic happens, like New Balance makes him like puts him in a commercial and gives him his own shoe line and then pays him all this money. Like I don't see that happening, but that's another name that's out there too. He does have a BC offer. He did take an official visit, but I wanted to give you 3 new names that are coming up. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. There's no practice on Thursday, so for Friday, we will have, more discussion about things going on with BC. If there's any news, we'll have it. And more camp discussion of things that have been going on for the last week. I'll be there to make sure that we discuss all of it. Thank you for following me on Twitter at AJBlack247. You can follow me on Instagram as well at Eagle Insider. Come over to Eagle Insider, by the way. 50% off right now. If you want to support my work, the easiest way to do that is through Eagle Insider. Great stuff on there right now. We have recruiting news, we have camp coverage, journals, notebooks, and all that. Now, I have to say, we've done our first question of the day, and the question was, who has the record for most rushing touchdowns in a single season? I'm recording this on Wednesday night, so if you commented after. If I get a ton of comments after, I will definitely update it on Friday's show. No one got it right. Not a single one of you got it right. Many of you guessed Andre Williams. He set the record for most rushing yards in a season with 2,500. I think 2,507. But you got to go further back. And I know this is on YouTube, but I know you older BC fans know this. It was Keith Barnett in 1974. He had 22 rushing touchdowns. So that was the answer to our last question. I got a new one for you, though. Before you head out, here's your question. I'm going to make this, I think this will be a little easier. When was the last time Boston College football had a winning record in conference? Put it in the comment section. If you get it right, I will shout you out on tomorrow's show. Thank you all for following, and I will see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.